Hey everyone, Cleo here and welcome to my channel, and today we are doing the last book haul of 2019. So I told myself I wasn't going to buy any more books in December, but I did break that promise a little bit. So I bought a couple of books myself, and the rest of this book haul will be the books that I received for Christmas. At the end of this book, at the end of this video, I will also give you the final count of unread books on my shelves before the year 2020. And so the goal will be in 2020 to reduce that list. So without further ado, let's go into the books that I bought for myself in the month of December. So first one I had to buy because I absolutely loved this book when I read it earlier this year, and that is Lani by Max Porter. So Lani by Max Porter is a bit difficult book to describe just because it doesn't sound very interesting based on the premise. So it's a book written in a somewhat lyrical style basically about a young family that has moved to the countryside, and their son Lani, who's a little bit like he seems to be a little bit of a child that is not of this world. He seems to be a little bit more on the side of the fairies, somewhat more whimsical. He still believes in all of these fantastical things, but you also start to feel when you interact with him that he is somewhat in touch with more spiritual elements. The story is told in a very interesting way, and I don't know whether you can see it, so it also has this interesting typography, and you get sort of a cross also a lot of times of what the villagers are saying about these city people who have entered into their little town. So it's very much about the us or them versus between like country folk and city folk. It's very much about the relationship between nature and the people in it. So you also have this very interesting character of Dead Papa Toothpick, which I won't tell you anything about it because I don't really know how to explain him here, but this was really wonderful. I encourage everybody who wants to read it to listen to the audiobook while reading it. I didn't physically own it before. I will definitely want to re-experience this with the physical text next to me, but the audiobook was very wonderful as well. It has a full cast narration, and it's just very whimsical, very fantastical. It has a lot of bird sounds in it as well, and I think the character of Dead Papa Toothpick especially comes out very well in the audiobook. Next up is a book that I haven't read. I think the majority of the books that I bought myself for the rest of this book haul will be like that. So the first one is Dear Friend, From My Life I Write to You in Your Life by Yi-Yoon Lee. I've been interested in starting some of Yi-Yoon Lee's work because I've heard that it's very interesting, it's very nice, so I want to experience this one. So on the blurb it says, written in the grip of suicidal depression, Dear Friend, From My Life I Write to You in Your Life is an uplifting account of what makes life worth living. So I think what I've read about most of her work, it touches on very heavy subject matter, but that is very beautifully written, and it's very emotional, very moving. So I'm very much looking forward to this one. It's also very short, so I hope to be getting around to it quite soon. Next up is two extremely short ones because they are from the Penguin Classic short story editions. First one is How Much Land Does a Man Need by Leo Tolstoy. So I don't know too much about this. I just read War and Peace by Tolstoy in August, really loved it, so I want to be reading more of Tolstoy's work. And so when I saw this little short classic on the bookshelves, then I was like, okay, sure, I want to get around to that one. And the other one is The Beautiful Cassandra by Jane Austen. I think I actually already maybe read this because I do have like collected works of her and probably the short stories in there as well, but I do like having it in this short format, and I do want to get around to rereading it or maybe reading it for the first time. I'm not entirely sure. Final book that I bought myself in the month of December is Life for Sale by Yukio Mishima. I don't really remember too much about this. I think I saw it in somebody else's wrap-up and I got really interested in it, and I'll see if I have a premise for it. Yeah, okay. It's about somebody who kind of feels like he's stuck in his life, the future holds nothing for him, and so he puts his life for sale in a newspaper. And so the premise of that just sounded interesting, and I'm very interested in seeing what is going to be the result of this. It seems to be also very surreal because it talks about like a world of murderers, mobsters, hidden cameras, a vampire woman, poisoned carrots, code breaking, a hopeless junkie heiress, and makeshift explosives reveals itself to the unwitting hero. So it sounds like it's going to be a wild ride. It's also relatively short. I think it's also somewhat, what is it, under the 200 pages. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I do like Japanese literature. I've read quite a few of them, but I've mostly read Murakami at this point, and so I would like to explore some more Japanese literature written by other voices. And then we get around to the books that I received for Christmas. For the majority, I've just asked for books that I'd already read, but that I wanted a specific edition for, or yeah, actually it's almost all of that. I think there's one book that I haven't, well, there are two books that I haven't, there are multiple books that I haven't read, but I wanted a specific edition of them. Two of them I actually own already, but not in that edition. First up is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte in the Vintage Classic edition. I absolutely love this edition. I received Jane Eyre in this edition last year, so I wanted this one this year. I have not read Wuthering Heights, and actually I have a bit of a troubled past with it because I have tried to read it twice and I only got to like chapter 1, so maybe I should really need to push through and get a little bit further into it before I decide on this one. I have seen the movie. I do like the story in general, but I think it's like the gloom of this story is something that needs to be consumed at a particular time in life, so probably it was just too gloomy for me at the time when I tried to read it. Next up in the same strain, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. Same edition. I absolutely love these editions, and I actually only realized recently that they have these sort of like illustrations hidden behind their covers. So Tenant of Wildfell Hall, you might have seen it in recent videos because I think I already talked about it quite recently in one of my videos. I actually owned a relatively new edition. I think you saw it in a book haul as well recently, and so now I received this edition, so yeah. But so this one I'm also very interested in. I want to be getting around to pretty fast. Next up is the sequel to a book that I've already read. I've read this book as well, and that is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the, I think it's the 20th anniversary, no, the 10th anniversary, it's not that old yet, the 10th anniversary edition. So all three books are already out in this edition. I kind of hesitated because I'm not entirely happy with this edition neither, but at some point I was just like, get it over with, buy one of these editions. If at some point you want to buy one of the others editions as well, I will give myself permission to that. But so now I have The Well of Ascension in this edition, and now I finally have a physical copy of this book, and I guess the third one will be for next year. So, by the way, this is part of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, which is a really great fantasy series. So, if you haven't read the Mistborn series and you're still looking for another fantasy read or for your first fantasy read, I think Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn suits for both occasions. It's a very good introduction into fantasy, and it's definitely something that any fantasy lover, I think, would like. The majority of people agree with me on that. So, Brandon Sanderson is very known for helping like complex magic systems, and so in this one, magic system consists of like metals, and if you ingest certain metals you can do certain things like pull objects toward you or push them away, or make people feel a certain way or things like that. So this is the magic system of this particular series. It is also part of his Cosmere, so part of his overarching story arc that he has with a lot of his books. Next up is the surprise book. So I didn't ask for this one, but I have actually checked it out a lot of times in the bookstore already. I've never decided to buy it, and so I'm happy that I now got it, and that is the Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arigawa. This is another Japanese This is another book of Japanese literature, and it is a story about a cat, and a cat is like going on a road trip. I've heard very good things about this. It's also rather short, so I'm assuming that this is one that you can absolutely fly through, so I'm going to be reading this one hopefully shortly. Final one that I haven't read yet, and it sadly got a little bit of a cover damage, is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. So this has been on my list for a couple of years. I was actually very sad last year when I didn't receive it, so I'm happy that I got it now. So this is the illustrated edition. I have not read this book yet at all. so it'll be a complete surprise for me, but I do know that it deals with some like heavy subject matter. The illustrations are also like very dark and very grim, but I think it deals with like a boy trying to process the news that his mother has cancer, or she actually died of cancer, that I'm not sure of. And so I think this sort of like cancer ridden, that this cancer is kind of like represented in this form of this monster. So I think the story is that his mother is diagnosed with cancer, and then this boy starts seeing a certain monster. So I'm really looking forward to this one. It sounds super interesting. It sounds like it's going to be hard hitting, but you know, hard hitting in a good way, that it's going to absolutely that I'm going to absolutely love it. And then the final two books, oh, they're so heavy. I couldn't include them in my thumbnail neither because they were just too heavy. So the first one I was expecting, and that is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So as a lot of people on BookTube, I am collecting these, and I asked for one each Christmas. So I got the Chamber of Secrets this year, and I'm really looking forward to it. I don't think I'm going to be reading them in this edition anytime soon, just because I'm doing a reread for Harry Potter at the moment. I've just finished the 5th one, so the 6th and the 7th are coming up, and then I think I need to take a little bit of a Harry Potter break before I actually start reading them in these editions. But who knows, maybe from time to time I'll just peruse through them and like read certain parts, or just look at the illustrations. And then surprisingly enough, I also received Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So as I said, you know, I asked for one of these each Christmas, and I got a second one this year. Now, timing wise, this might not be perfect in the sense that you know, knowing that the 5th book is probably going to take 2 years as well, and then probably the 6th as well, maybe the 7th even, I was just kind of assuming like if I kept at this pace I could like catch up for the final book and just like not have to go a year without. And at some point now I will have to go a year without, but you know what, it's also not the worst thing in the world, because as I said, I probably won't even get around to reading these before like, I don't know, the 7th one or something. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm not angry about receiving it already. So Prisoner of Azkaban is one of my favorite Harry Potter books. The 5th one is my favorite. So I'm really happy to have this one. I really think it's also one of the most beautiful covers of the series so far. I'm really looking forward to what they will do with the 5th one actually in that respect, because it's such a dear book to my heart, and I really hope that they don't mess that one up. You know, it's not like they can mess anyone. None of the covers are ugly, you know, but still, you know, if it has such a special place in my heart that I really hope it has like a perfect cover or anything like that. But in any case, these are the books that I received for Christmas, the final books that I bought for myself in the month of December. And with all of these books added to my list, then I end up with 147 unread books on these shelves. So as I've said in a previous video, I'm going to be trying to reduce that number in 2020, which means I'm going to be trying not to do a lot of book hauls neither. So my goal is to not add too many books, definitely not add more books than what I'm reading, but I really want to go a lot lower. So I think that I want to try and keep myself to only like buying new releases if I really want them, and not to buy backlisted books unless, I mean, I will give myself some exceptions from time to time. I don't know yet whether I want to make sort of like a prohibition of just like saying, okay, 20 books for 2020. 20 is the maximum that you're allowed to buy, because 20 actually also still stands a lot. I don't know what to do. I kind of want to put the rules, that I also don't want to restrict myself too much, because I know that I will keep to those rules. So I need to make sure that I don't make them too strict. But so in any case, maybe let me know down below if you have any good tips about how to keep yourself from buying too many books and anything like that. If you've read any of these books, definitely let me know down below what your thoughts were on them, whether you think I should get around to them as fast as possible, or like which ones you think I should be prioritizing. But so in any case, I'm looking forward to getting around to these books, and definitely one of my goals for 2020, apart from getting a lot of these unread books on my shelf read, is to read the books that I'm buying as soon as possible. Not saying like, okay, I need to buy them the next day, but like really reduce the time between buying a book and reading it, because at this point when I buy a book, it might take months or years for me to get around to it, just because I will always feel like the pressure of these books on my shelves in some regard. And I think I really want to try and focus on the fact that, okay, read it while you're still like in the period of like just having bought it, and obviously when you've just bought it you're like dying to get around to it. So that's going to be part of my plan, so I'm definitely hoping to get around to the majority of these books pretty soon in 2020. But so yeah, that was my little bit of a ramble after my book haul, and so we'll be diving into 2020, trying to reduce this list of 147 books. So see you guys!